All right, welcome again to our COVID-19 coronavirus discussion. Just an experimental show that we started last week just to see what kind of audience might be watching. We're streaming live on YouTube, Periscope, Facebook Live. What else did I miss? And Ustream. And we can take your calls. We've got the Skype line going right now. So President Trump just got done speaking, if some of you all were watching that. He just spoke. He was actually quite factual with the things that he said. I mean, his delivery is not that great, but he seemed to have facts at his command here about how many N95 masks are getting to the various states, or allowing the National Guard access to the National Guard, from what I understand, in California. It's a major disaster as declared in New York. I don't know what that means, but I guess there's connotations that go with that. And they're providing, he had listed the surgical gowns, N95 masks. I think there was a couple other groups of supplies. It seemed like large numbers. I don't know what those, if it's what they need, but apparently they're providing them to these states at their request, which is good. Looks like they're going to get this thing going. And they're saying, the news reports, CNN, Fox, MSNBC are saying that China is reporting no new infections of the coronavirus, or no new deaths. I don't know if it was deaths or infections. I think it was infections. I don't know how they're measuring it, and I don't know if that's true, but if it's true, it would be awesome. Because it means the curve has flattened a little bit. It's been in China quite a bit longer than it is here. So I think it's going to be, at some point it slows down a little bit. So you got some pretty hard numbers now, too. And the other thing is, Donald Trump keeps referring to it as the Chinese virus, and boy, he makes a case of saying that. It's the Chinese virus, Chinese virus, Chinese virus. Obviously, that's deliberate on his part. I mean, it came from, I guess, a couple of years ago they called it the Hong Kong flu, so I don't know what else is different. But they got a name for it. It's two names, coronavirus or COVID-19. So I think he should just refer to it as that, but that's his choice. And it looks like they're getting these medical supplies that they need for these people to care for other people. The death toll keeps rising. But one interesting thing that I noticed, so there's some math to work with right now. And the math is this: 31,000 people have been tested positive in the U.S. for it. 389 have died. That's about 1.2% death rate. And we're still not, we still haven't tested everybody. So if only 31,000 people have been tested, that 1.2 number, my suspicion is it's going to go way down. And it's going to end up, in maybe the same area that Dr. Cereso was talking about the other night. Same as the flu. I don't know. The flu is way under 1%. It's like 0.05% or something like that if people die. And it's generally older people with compromised immune systems. God knows we got a lot of those people in this country. There's all kinds of memes on Facebook and stuff because people are sitting home. There's nothing else to do. I got nothing else to do but sit in here and yap at you guys, so why not? But, talking about the various other illnesses in this country that are not considered a pandemic, such as obesity. There's the consensus is that in a few years, 50% of our population is going to be morbidly obese. And with that comes, you know what all the problems are that come with that. It's heart issues, diabetes is up there, and diabetes is an enormously expensive thing. Talking with a friend of mine, he's friends with me on Facebook, Ed Ganley. He's been a longtime friend of mine. Now, just so you know, in terms of health, I don't think you could find a healthier guy than Ed Ganley. He came to my house. He's run well over 100 marathons. He wanted to run 6 marathons or something in 7 days or some incredible thing. Like, the guy's in unbelievable shape. He came here to Jacksonville, and the next Saturday ran a marathon, and that was it. And he's like, yeah, it's nothing. Unbelievably good health. But he has diabetes, and he was just talking to me, and he manages it with shots, but he was just talking to me about the expense of it. And pretty incredible. And we were talking about healthcare. We got into that whole debate. And, you know, with the healthcare, it's still pretty expensive. Without the healthcare, it'd be like $1,000 a month for the medicine. And he's in great shape. He's not a guy who's obese. You can't blame him for anything. He's as great a shape as you could possibly be. So imagine the people that are not in good shape that have diabetes problems. It's killing a lot of people, way more than this virus will ever kill. But the virus has got everybody's attention. I went for a bike ride with my son, Marino. By the way, who's producing right now. He's an excellent producer. Frees me up so I can sit here and yap at you guys freely. And we went for a bike ride. We didn't see too many people around. Saw a few people here and there, people jogging, stuff like that in our neighborhood. We're in a gated community here, so it's more likely for people to be out and about here, kids and stuff like that, but there just weren't. And I haven't been out. I mean, I realized that we actually are quite sheltered. You know, the only other thing that I would do that I wasn't going to do is I usually go out to lunch. I take Marino out for lunch on Saturdays, and then we go to the gym, to LA Fitness. That's closed, or a bike ride or something else. So not a ton has changed here. I see that CNN's gone ape shit, posting a person in St. Simon's Island, where my parents live, where my dad lives, on the beach. Gary Tuckman was on St. Simon's Island last night getting heckled by spring breakers, you know, because they're kids. They don't see it, they don't have it, and it doesn't exist. And, you know, there's just too many other things going on in their life to think about this. And people are outraged, but that's what it is. I mean, that's what kids do. They don't pay attention to a lot of good advice. So if you don't close the beaches, they're going to keep coming to the beaches and hanging out. And they showed the beach. There are tons of people sitting next to each other, walking hand in hand, laying next to each other on the beach. It's going to go on, and you can sit and be horrified all you want, but you're not, unless you close the beaches, you're not going to do anything. They still haven't closed the beaches yet here in Florida. This is one of those kind of Yahoo states. We believe in freedom, but it's just the public appearance of things. As the governor, DeSantis, new governor here, it's the appearance that you're not doing anything that brings trouble. They closed the Hard Rock Hotel in South Florida, which I didn't think was ever going to happen, but it's closed. I thought that would be the last thing to close. I noticed, though, an interesting thing, though, you can still buy lottery tickets on Florida Lottery. My wife and I were talking about it. I went on there, and sure enough, they're drawing numbers, and you can. I thought maybe they'd slow that down because you got to buy a ticket. The person behind the counter has to hand it to you, so there's a transmission problem there. But it's, life is going to have to go on. We're going to see how it's going to go next week. I'm in the medical business, and we're considered non-essential or non-life-saving. Our sleep tests and stuff that we do are scheduled. They do eventually save people's lives because we prescribe CPAP machines for patients. But they haven't shut down businesses yet to try and slow it down, and I don't know if they will. I'm taking your calls today if you want to call in. 904-328-7272 on the line. Got the Skype line open. And tell us what's going on in your neck of the woods. Are you home? Are you hanging out? What's your life like? We had to execute some layoffs, which is just probably the most awful thing you can possibly have to do to people in this time. Florida had its lowest unemployment rate ever recorded prior to 2 weeks ago. It was 2.72% or something like that of unemployment. That's virtually 0% because, I look at a lot of resumes. There are very many weeks where I look at hundreds of resumes for people. And most of the people now that are not employed, looking for a job, are unemployable people for whatever reason. They've been to job, they're just not employable. So it's virtually everybody that wants to be employed is employed. And that's changed dramatically. Now they're seeing close to 20% unemployment. They had 285,000 unemployment claims made last week, and they think that's going to double, triple, quadruple. There's going to be if it's 20% unemployment, there's like 150 or 80 million people employed. That's a lot. You're talking 7, 8, 9 million people unemployed in a matter of 2 weeks or 3 weeks or however long it's going to be. I think the only upside to this is it obviously is eventually going to go away. I listened to Dr. Fauci last night pretty extensively, and Gupta and Anderson Cooper were questioning him. This is the first time I actually heard a clarified answer on this, and that is if you get the COVID virus and you get over it successfully, obviously. If you don't, you die, but if you do, then there's virtually no chance of you getting it again. And I heard different interpretations of that, but of you getting the same COVID-19 again, there's virtually no chance. He said the only chance there is if you live to be a very, very old age and your immune system's like super weak or something like that. But if you get it, you're not going to get it again until it mutates, which it does. But it generally mutates into weaker versions of itself is how it goes. The initial version is strong, and then it mutates when it gets into your cells. I'm just telling you what I listened to them talk about and did a little bit of reading yesterday. So that's the good news. So the more people that get exposed to it and their immune system fights it off and builds the antibodies, the quicker it's going to go away. Sounds to me like it'll be past us. It'll be through the population before they ever get an effective vaccine for it. Trump was talking about effective medicine, antiviral medications that they're testing right away. But, the testing takes a long time. You can't just roll it out and pray for somebody to get it. I actually saw one of the guys who is the test subject for the vaccine. And so I don't know if I understood the whole process, but what he said was he's in quarantine, and he has to be in quarantine for a long time. I thought that once you get vaccinated for something, then you go out in public and, in a couple of days, and when your body's created the antibodies and then you're immune, your antibodies are there to kill it. But apparently that's not the whole process. It was something different than what I thought. But they interviewed the guy who was on CNN. He's I don't know, he looked to be a 40-year-old guy, but he said he's in quarantine now for months. Not like a super strict quarantine where somebody's watching him in a hotel or a hospital room or something like that. He's self-quarantined at home, and he's minimized his exposure. And then I think they give him another dose of it in 28 days is what they said. Not sure how the whole thing works medically. Should have asked Teresa when I had him on the other night. But, the wheels are in motion now. And I hate to say it, I'm almost starting to feel like I'm getting used to the whole thing because I'm not sick. I made the mistake of watching that video of the girl in England. I don't know if you saw it. It's getting passed around on social media. She's got COVID-19, and it's a pretty severe case. She said it was like coughing up glass, broken glass, and she was coughing while she was on the video. She's well enough she said she was a lot better than she had been in the previous days, and she wasn't very old. She's 35 or 39 or something. She doesn't look very old. She's pretty sick, though. But she doesn't describe what her other... She said my immune system is compromised. She did say that, and I think in the video. So, and they're saying, they're spotting cases here and there, but it seems that most everyone has a compromised immune system or they're older. I'm trying to warn my dad to stay in, but he's going to Winn-Dixie every single day. Shouldn't be, to get his newspaper. It's like, dude, stay home, man. Get groceries for 2 weeks and stay home. It's relentless. Don't want to get that New York Times instead of just getting it online. You know what I mean? He wants to have that paper in his hands. So everybody's safe so far. I do not know anybody that's got it. You guys, anybody there know that's anybody there that knows anybody that's got it? I don't think so, since there's only 31,000 people tested. I mean, it seems to me anybody of importance is getting tested, because Rand Paul came down with it today. They're obviously testing congressmen and senators, so it's clearly another one of these situations where people with money and power and everything else, and Trump admitted it as much a couple days ago when they were asking him about the NBA players getting the test, that is. And he said, well, that's kind of the way it is, but I mean, welcome to America. That's the privileged get the tests, and the rest of us sit around and clear our throats and hope it's not the COVID-19 virus, but it is what it is. If you listen to Dr. Cereso the other night, it's like the flu. We're all going to get exposed to it at one point or another. Some of us are going to get it. A few of us are going to get sick. Right now, it's at 1.2% of the people have died from it. I think that's going to go down because as the testing comes, it's going to go farther down. There are numbers on it, so I don't know. I didn't calculate Italy's. I just calculated the United States, which is 31,000 people tested positive and 389 have died from it, so 1%, a little over 1%. I don't know if that's good or that's bad, but it's not the 3 or 4% that was originally being predicted. I think those numbers go down as time goes up. 904-328-7272 if you want to call in. I see some of you guys on here on the broadcast. Not a lot of people, but I'm broadcasting on YouTube, Periscope, and Ustream on my other bigger platforms. And Facebook, I only have 500 friends or something on here, but I got about 3,000 people that follow on YouTube, and Ustream has got, I don't even know how many, lots of people, so I can't see those. I probably should. And Periscope. I don't have too many on Periscope or Twitter. Not a big Twitter person, but I broadcast on there anyways to get the broadest audience. Call in, let me know what's going on your end. What do you see? What's going on? People shopping? Are you out? Are you driving around? Are you still employed? Are you working from home? What is it you're doing? I'm still going into work. I'm going into work tomorrow until someone tells me otherwise. We haven't found anybody that's sick at work. I've sent a couple people home that we suspected were sick and kept them home. One girl had the flu, was confirmed. She got a test, and they confirmed that she had the flu. So we kept her at home. That's the closest we've had to anything. I mean, it's coming. It's going to be here. It's going to spread. Can't stop it, even with the social distancing and all that stuff. I mean, when you're aware of how much stuff you touch. We did Nate's show last night, Experience the Galaxy with Nate Campbell right here. When he left, I disinfected everything here. I sprayed everything down, just try to figure out what he and David were actually touching in the studio. The arms, the keyboard, the mic, the entire microphone here, everything. Disinfected, allegedly, with spray. So I would presume that we killed whatever it was here. The soundboard, my keyboard, all that stuff, sprayed it all down. But, I mean, that's just in a very controlled environment where you're sitting and there's not a lot of things to touch. Imagine what it's like when you're just out in the real public. I mean, talking to my dad about it, going to the grocery store, you're buying that newspaper. First of all, somebody handled that newspaper. The virus can live on it for several days in the right environment. Whoever was loading the newspapers, that guy touched it. You put the thing up on the counter when you bring it up there. If you're using the keypad for your ATM card. Somebody's touched that ATM keyboard pad, but everybody that's gone through the line has touched it. So if 50 or 100 people have come through that line every day, 50 or 100 people's DNA is on that thing. So it's, that's why I'm trying to encourage my dad to stay home and stop it. He's an old school, but he's 88. He does not have a compromised immune system other than he's 88, which makes it inherently compromised, but he's in pretty good health. He went to the doctor, and the guy says, you're going to live. I don't know when you're going to die, and you don't have anything chronic, and he's still driving and still eats and cooks for himself, and so what can you do? I have to call him up again tonight and give him a kick in the ass. Dad, stop going to get that newspaper. I said, can't you get it delivered? I think he just wants to get out of the house. I'm sure. Not good, though. But anyways, give me a call if you're out there. 904-328-7272. If you're out there on YouTube or Ustream or Periscope, you can give me a call. I can't see your comments on there. I should be looking on Periscope to see exactly what's going on, because people are making comments on there. They were the other day. I apologize. I should be paying attention, not asleep at the wheel here. But we're dealing with this COVID. We're in I don't know how many days we're in here. We're in our, really, on this country, it's been about a week and a half, 2 weeks since we really sort of started to shut everything down. St. John's schools sent out a notification they're closed until at least April 15th. The federal government moved not the tax filing day, but if you owe money, the payment date back to July 15th, I think it is. 3 months, give you time to pay your taxes, which is a good thing. It's still not clear what kind of checks they're going to be sending out to people, or what. I've read a pretty good piece in the New York Times that was talking about. They haven't really actually decided how they're going to distribute money. One of the things they want to do is give $10 million loans to businesses, and then you do not have to pay back the payroll if you keep your employees on the payroll, which is a pretty. I can't imagine that's not too terribly that is too terribly expensive, because there are a lot of small businesses. It's got to be in the trillions, and if you're just going to forgive it, that's a lot of money that's got to come out of the coffers of this country to keep it running. But I mean, what they're looking at here is not laying people off to try to quell the unemployment, because one way or the other they're going to pay money. This state, the state of Florida here, virtually rolled back everything on their unemployment. So if you're in this state and you become unemployed, you're pretty screwed. You got a 2-week waiting period. The max you can get is $275 a week. So that amounts to a little over $1,000 a month. And in even the most remote of cities here, that will barely pay your rent. It will not feed you. And it's only for 12 weeks. And that's it. That's because our Yahoo state legislature that was taken over by Tea Party guys in 2011 crushed anything that remotely would be helping people on unemployment. And, you don't have to think about that stuff when the unemployment's 2.8%. But you're going to have to think about it when it's 20%, because people are going to go broke. They're going to be thrown out of their houses. They are one of them, and they're going to be thrown off their health care. So if you totally depend on, this is the problem with depending on employer-based health care. When something like this happens, everybody's out of insurance. That's 20% of America is going to be out of insurance if they had it, and that's a problem, especially when it's a pandemic where all those people are likely to get sick. I saw an article today about a lady who went in uninsured, went to the emergency room 3 times. It was $37,000 was her bill, and I'm surprised it was that little, because I know what stuff costs. I know what we bill for our sleep studies and follow-up care and stuff like that. It's not cheap. Emergency room is the most expensive place to go to. And if you're really sick, you're going to be $500,000 in. If you're on a respirator and that's in an ICU for a month trying to recover for this, you don't have insurance, you're going to be $1 million in. You're going to be filing bankruptcy. It's just that simple. And that just puts the burden back on the hospital who had to supply you with care. They have to write off the bill, which ends up then, putting strain on the healthcare system because, as everybody knows, the healthcare insurance companies run healthcare in our country right now, and it is not the good people to have them, not the right people to have running your healthcare system. It should be healthcare executives who take the same sort of tact as Medicare, with the exception of pharmaceutical companies. They need to be able to negotiate that and get it cheaper, because pharmaceutical companies hammer us for medicine. But you could call in 904-328-7272. Trump just spoke. He sent in all the, or he's ordered supplies to all the states. Looks like they're starting to get these N95 masks and surgical gowns. And there's another kind of mask I didn't recognize, so it looks like they are starting to get that rolling and going. I don't know how true it is what he's saying, but I presume it is. He's got pretty specific numbers. They're enabling the National Guard to help enforce things. One of the things they were talking about was price gougers, and that they're going to go after price gougers, guys that are hoarding masks and stuff like that, and trying to sell them on Amazon and eBay. Amazon and eBay should just shut all that down. I don't want to hear their excuses on Amazon about how they can't get everybody. All you got to do is go on Amazon, put in an N95 mask, and you'll find a hoarder in like 15 seconds. You know where he is, because if you're selling something on Amazon, you got an account with your address and everything about you. They go lock these guys up and take everything they've got and give it to people. The hoarding thing is crazy. In this state, they have gouging laws that are pretty well enforced here, and that came from the hurricanes. We watch people price gouging on water, bottled water, and all kinds of stuff. They go and buy it all out, and then they sell it on the side of the street, and they cut it down. They lock people up. Guess what? It stops. They need to do the same thing with hoarding at grocery stores. Put a cop in a bunch of these grocery stores and say you get one package of toilet paper, and you're not filling 15 grocery carts with all this food and creating this. And don't say they can't do it. They did it in World War II. They rationed stuff. Stop it. It's ridiculous. Buying all that stuff. It's just America. There's a great article that somebody wrote about. There's a lady from Jamaica that was just talking about hoarding and our self-centered way of dealing with stuff. If hey, we're just so self-centered that we see an issue, this pandemic, and then immediately we start thinking, what can we do to put ourselves at the front of the line, in front of somebody else? So we go out and buy shit. This toilet paper becomes this thing that people want to buy. And so we go out and buy everything we can. And some people take it and stick it in their garage and sell it or whatever they think they're going to make money off of it. And other people just pile it up because it's somehow currency now. It's ridiculous. And it's not really the grocery store's fault. They're not here to... They shouldn't have to police people, but people are just assholes with that stuff. Just king-size assholes with doing that kind of stuff. So then you got to take you got to let law enforcement deal with it, or tell the grocery stores and stuff, you got to self-police. One package for each person. And put security there. Because people don't care. I say, man, I want it. Just imagine it. And the reality is like, look it. Why are you hoarding it? You're going to be locked in your house and no one's going to be able to get near you. One case of toilet paper is going to last you your 2-week quarantine, right? How many rolls a day can you use of toilet paper? It's not the stomach flu you got here. It's the nasal flu. Should be hoarding boxes of Kleenex or whatever, or cough syrup or something, but you're not. You picked out toilet paper, and ridiculous people. Crazy. 904-328-7272. I got my Skype line open. And we can take your calls. If I missed your call, I got something going on with the Skype. I've installed and reinstalled it. This new version from Microsoft sucks. It doesn't always show when people are calling. I got the screen open right now, and it sometimes it doesn't work. So if you call in and call back, eventually the line will open up, and we'll see you. It's supposed to just display up at the top. I should be able to hear you with the sound here, but it's the phone lines are open right now. We'll take it from you. Tell us what you're doing, man, where you're at, how you're self-quarantining or social distancing, or what's going on with your job. Are they laying people off? Are they letting you work from home? You know, the good news is that we got lots of people that can work from home, so it is working pretty well. Pretty devastating in Italy. That's a person-to-person society there. A lot of personal contact, and they eat together every night, and they're a little bit more social than we are, so it's affected them hard. And they have an older population there, and it's hitting them pretty hard. It's not a fun situation if you're in Italy. It looks like Italy's deaths have now surpassed China's. And, I mean, it's just a death count now. Turn on CNN, you'll see the death count on the right. They want you to see that. Every time there's one of these things, they have to put the chyron up that's got the statistic. I don't know if you guys remember when the oil rig exploded there in the Gulf of Mexico, and then the pipe broke off, and they put a camera down there on the leak showing the oil spewing out into the ocean. And of course CNN took the feed of that and posted it as a chyron 24/7, so you could see the oil spewing, and it was pretty unnerving to watch. But that's their thing. I'm not necessarily anti-CNN, but call it what it is. You've got that down there because you're trying to get people worked up about this. The point that the thing is, we know it's leaking and we can see it, but it's down there 24/7 on any news program you have to watch. It's even showing during the commercials. Same thing with this death watch. How many people have died? Death gets people's attention. If you were just counting how many people were dying normally here in a day, it'd be pretty frightening, because the clock would be spinning pretty rapidly. 904-328-7272. See a couple people called, so call back if you want to get through on this line, and hopefully I can get the call and pick it up here in Skype. This new version, Microsoft version of Skype, leaves a bit to be desired. Just the ringing part doesn't work for some reason. You can't see sometimes you can, sometimes you can't. But tell me what's going on in your life. We're on YouTube, Ustream, Periscope, and Facebook Live. Those of you on YouTube, call in if you want. Tell us what's going on. Tell us where you're at, what's going on in your life, and how the COVID-19 is affecting you guys. I think next week's going to be a real indicator. That numbers are going to start to come in from unemployment and the virtual crash of the economy. One thing tells you is like how fragile our economy is. I mean, it's pretty incredibly fragile. It just takes 2 weeks of panic here over a virus, and it is the place is like virtually, economy is virtually like shut down. 30% of the stock market, we've lost the value. Now I'm sure it's going to come back. I mean, it's not, I don't think it's as devastatingly long as it's definitely not as devastatingly long as the crash in 2008, because that had long systemic problems that built up for it. This thing just all of a sudden came and went. I'll tell you one thing, if you're one of these bioterrorists and you can come up with a virus that is contagious and deadly, a million times more devastating than any bomb you can drop or anything like that. You infect people, because you can see what the effects are of this. It's pretty incredible, just on our economy. I mean, it's surpassed 9/11 and all of the economic problems it's had by far already. And I don't know what the fallout's going to be, how long it's going to last. Months. My guess is if you watch China and they start to flatten this thing out, it's going to last a month or 2 months, and then it's going to start to even out. I mean, it's kind of like a shark scare. The shark is swimming around in the water right now, and everybody's out of it except for the idiots. Once the shark swims away and people start to not see people getting sick, they'll go back to their life, go back to work and stuff like that. The problem is, how do we survive? We've got 40% of our population that doesn't have $400 in the bank to survive. That's not a good situation. And the people that are most affected in the state of Florida here, especially in South Florida, man, it is a service economy. And service, mostly hotels. The Hard Rock Casino is one of the biggest employers down there, and they're out of business. And they got people that make big money. My wife worked there for 10 years. You got car dealers that make over $100,000 a year. You got wait staff. You got bartenders. You got hotel workers. Man, they are all out of work. And lots of those places have little or no PTO. I work in a mid to small size business. We are very generous with a PTO. 3 weeks paid vacation plus 6 holidays. It's a lot. But most people, it's the beginning of the year. We reset at the beginning of the year, so most people only have 3, 4, 5 days in the bank. And so that's what you have to live on until the company can get back to work. You can't blame small businesses. They don't have huge amounts of cash reserves to just pay people to keep them on the payroll. They have to say, well, we got to lay them off, and then we'll hire them back when we can, and we'll take our losses, our loss of revenue. We can't have a loss of revenue and a gain of expenses at the same time. So the logical conclusion is you have to execute layoffs, and that's what these small businesses are doing, and they're considering in a couple of the bills. There's a great article in the New York Times yesterday that was talking about everything they can do. The conclusion of that article was just you got to do everything. You got to give small business loans and forgive the payments for keeping people on your payroll if you keep people on your payroll. You got to bail out some industries, but you can't bail out all of them. Boeing wants a bailout already, but they didn't put all their money in reserve. They kind of spent it to up the price of their stock, so you can't. People who had the money and didn't put it in reserve shouldn't be eligible for bailouts. If you had when your business was going well and you had the chance to hoard some money for a rainy day, you should have done it. But the airline industry in itself is, it's going to collapse. There's airlines are going to go out of business. That's just going to happen here. Airline is essential to us, to the business class. And, so I was reading another article that was talking about the revenue that comes from airlines. So a typical flight here in the United States, the business traveler who pays first class or business class on these flights, their revenue is 60% of the plane's revenue when it flies. And the average Joe like you and me that sits in the back in the crowded seats is only 40%. When the plane is full, it's only 40%. When it's not full, it's even less. It's 30 or 20% of the revenue. So business travel is essential here. It allows us still to allows our business here. We've got sleep centers in 16 states. Allows our executives to fly to all those different centers to manage them. Flight, inexpensive. When they deregulated the airlines, I don't know how many years ago, 20 or 30 years ago, you business guys would know that. It made cheap travel a lot easier for businesses, small businesses, to travel from business to business. It allowed people to travel, and it allowed tourism to grow in the United States because you can fly to these destinations a lot cheaper. Your flight isn't the biggest part of isn't the biggest expense of your trip. It's the least expensive part. A couple $100 to fly wherever it is you want to go. Your hotel's probably your biggest expense. So, the airline industry was deregulated, and then it had very short, tight margins of profit, and they go up in smoke when something like this happens. You can see how delicate they are. You have to cancel flights. These airports are empty. It's the worst nightmare for these guys. The cruise industry, that industry is going to go under, or at least some of the cruise They have money, but they still have to pay for these enormous billion-dollar ships that they financed. And you can't do that if the ships aren't full. And I'll tell you right now, I'm not sure if I'll ever go on a cruise. What happens on these cruise ships, I mean, look, the thing came into our country, the initial patient zero was from a cruise ship. It's just the perfect environment for something like this to flourish, and it's proximity to people. So a cruise ship is, it's been, if you live in this country now and you see what happened on these cruise ships, you are definitely thinking twice about where you're going with your tourism dollars. You're going to drive somewhere, rent an RV, or are you going to fly to Fort Lauderdale and get on a cruise ship? A cruise ship, it looks like you've got a pretty good chance of getting something because that norovirus comes and goes. Look, I was in South Florida for 30 years, and those norovirus reports were a cruise ship where the entire ship gets sick with norovirus. Look, it happened to my son who's sitting here producing for me. They got norovirus, and it made the national news at Creekside High School this year. And Marino is a super healthy kid. I mean, take a look at him. Flip the camera on you, man. He's a thin kid. He's in real good shape. He gets on a treadmill and can run a mile without too much problem. He just went on a bike ride with me. He doesn't even break a sweat. He's healthy, and he eats healthy. We eat essentially vegan. He sneaks a little meat now and again, but he eats well. Vegetables, and he's got a great diet. Doesn't eat any junk, no soda, nothing like that. Boom. He got sick from that norovirus. The entire school did in literally, how long did it take? 2 days. 2 days that whole school got sick. And they all got sick. I mean, these are healthy kids for the most part. It's a rather affluent school in St. Johns County. There's no kids on food coupons here, I'm sure. But, wow, they got sick, and that's what happens on these cruise ships. So my guess is that cruise ship industry, if it doesn't take a major hit, some of these, they're going to go out of business, some of them. They're going to put these ships up for sale. When the economy gets back, somebody's going to have to refinance it or buy these companies out because I'll tell you right now, I've been on a cruise one time. I went on a Royal Caribbean. It was great. Nobody got sick or anything. It was fun. But if I got my choice of vacations, I mean, I really wanted to go on a cruise to Alaska. My wife and I were talking about it. I mean, we don't want to go to the Caribbean. She grew up in Cuba, and, I lived in South Florida for 30 years. I got no interest in cruising around in the Caribbean, and I've been to all those Jamaica and the islands and all that kind of stuff, the U.S. Virgin Islands. I've seen all that. I'd rather go to Alaska, but if you're going to get on a ship where somebody's going to get on sick and spread it, and man, I can't think of a bigger nightmare than being stuck on a cruise ship with norovirus or coronavirus. How good can the healthcare be on a ship? I know they have doctors on there and they have an infirmary and stuff, but no thanks. I'll pick another vacation. I'd rather go to Cuba, quite frankly. I know I'm going to get healthcare there. Not great, but I'm going to get it. But 904-328-7272. I see some people giving me shout-outs. Yeah, so Ed Ganley's on here. I was just talking about him earlier. Those guys that are dumping their stocks. And it was Democrats and Republicans. That chick from California, she's rich. She dumped like $3 million worth of stock because they have to disclose it. Lock them all up. That is such bullshit. I mean, the optics of that are absolutely incredible. One of them that did it said they had a blind trust, and the blind trust executed the stock dumping. Except the Senate and the Congress got these confidential briefings on this, and contrary to what perhaps the president believes, I'm pretty sure those senators and congressmen believe what they're hearing when people say there's going to be a pandemic and there's going to be a mass stock drop and that, and they dump their stocks. That shit should not be allowed. It's just such a bad look when they do that stuff. And they do have rules against it. I mean, what's her name there? Martha Stewart got locked up for it. She got a tip from somebody and dumped her stock, and she went to jail for it. Congress and Senate, you got advised of this, and then you dump stock, you should be lock them up, send that message. Can't do that stuff. And you can't just say, well, you just can't. You can't be privy to information and buy and sell stocks based on that's the whole premise of the stock market, is that you're doing it on your own information. You can't do it on secret or top secret or whatever the level of information it was, confidential or whatever they call it, different levels of information, then sell your stock. Not good. But I want to welcome all the people on Facebook Live. Got a few people following. Just been doing this show. It's not one of my regular shows. Just been doing it to kill time in my new studio here, the LDL TV studio. It's filled with a bunch of my boxing memorabilia because we do boxing fight night shows, and Nate Campbell does his show every Saturday night to a different kind of audience. We were doing it last night, and we had some comedians on last night. It's pretty funny. He's pretty radical. Nate's got definitely his own corner of the world, his opinion. Definitely. He's a man with an opinion, that's for sure. But if you've got any opinions, give them up here. 904-328-7272. We'll take your call. I'm going to stay on a couple more minutes. But Trump did speak today. He had some facts for us. Thousands of masks. I forgot what I heard the number were. 86,000 N95 masks they're sending to. That's good. Surgical gowns. There was some other kind of mask. It's not N95, whatever the kind of mask it was. There was, 80 or 50 or 100,000 masks. I forgot what the number was that they're distributing to the states. That's good because our healthcare workers are on the front line. Look, there are people on the front lines here. Grocery store workers, people in drugstores, guys delivering food. They're out on the front lines here. So remember those people when Christmas comes. Tip those guys next time they come and take care of them because they're out there on the front line getting stuff done. Especially these healthcare workers here that are asked to see people without masks. My sister-in-law is one of them. No mask. They're telling her she can't use a mask in a critical care unit because these people don't have COVID. Well, you still can't use a mask? That's what they're telling her. That's pretty. It's pretty awful. I'll just tell you that right now. But that's our healthcare system, man. I mean, it's a good look to time to take a good hard look at our healthcare system. It's not necessarily the problem isn't necessarily that people don't have healthcare. That's always going to be a problem. I don't know if Medicare for All solves it because you're still going to have a shortage of beds and materials, and it's the way it goes. But it's just in this country, the land of plenty here, you would think that we would have stockpiles of stuff that we need for a situation like this. We wouldn't be sitting here scrambling for the last 3 weeks trying to free up stockpiles of masks and gowns because if you listen to Dr. Cereso the other night, Friday night, I mean, he considers this similar to the flu viruses, the various ones that have come. And the stats are coming in to bear that out. And we have to deal with it every year. But it still seems incredible that we've got masks. Now, I heard the thing about the 3M masks, that they had to free up the liability for 3M, because 3M makes these N95 masks for filtering out particles. And the particles being construction material particles and stuff like that. They happen to work well enough that they are able to filter out a virus. A virus can't get through it. So it turns out it works. But they don't... Apparently 3M was afraid of the liability that they have. If they sell these masks and people use it and they get sick, are they going to get sued for it? Because you know how litigious a society we are. You got a product, there's a lawyer out there waiting to sue you over it. Especially a big company with a lot of money, that the appearance would be that they're going to make millions and millions of dollars in profit off of these N95 masks over our pandemic here. And lawyers are going to figure out a way to sue them for that if somebody gets sick. So understandably, 3M says, we're not you've got to legislate and free us from liability on this. You got to give us some legislation that frees us from the liability, and we'll get you all the masks that you need at the right price. So that's a crazy thing. I don't know if they've resolved that or not. I haven't been able to locate any news on it, but I did hear that was something that they were negotiating. Hopefully they got it done. Well, it's another day. A couple more people die. They seem to be getting their stuff together on this COVID-19 virus. It's coming slowly. We're going to find out next week how many more people are getting laid off. We're going to find out what kind of funding is going to happen from the federal government. Rand Paul is diagnosed as testing positive, although he's not sick. One senator and a couple of congressmen, Jose Diaz-Balart in South Florida, tested positive. So important people are starting to get it now. So we're going to see. I'm going to keep broadcasting. If it's boring, it's boring. Don't listen. If you like it, call in tomorrow. Try to go on about 8 o'clock. Give you updates on what's going on here in Jacksonville. Still don't have a lot of people sick in here in Jacksonville yet, but it looks like it's on its way. And we'll talk with you guys tomorrow night at 8. Coronavirus special. Still on.